Hello, welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. Today I've got my wife with me again to help with showing the next healing technique that I'm going to do. So we've gone through lots of videos using our sense of touch to perform different types of healing. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I still, however, advise that you go back and watch the previous videos so that you understand what I'm talking about in this particular video. And especially for this technique I'm going to do today, make sure you look back at the mindfulness during healing video and also the video about the type of Vipassana technique that Goenka teaches, and that is the body scan technique. And the reason for that is that in order to perform this particular healing technique I'm going to do today, you've got to have a good awareness of your body, and gradually over time, as you do that particular Vipassana technique, you get a better idea of whether something is yours or not. And of course, you learn to allow the energy to flow through you, no matter what's happening in your body. And of course, practicing that allowing of energy to flow through your body, no matter what's happening, especially in the areas where you feel discomfort, is very important for you to have a good basis to learn what I'm going to teach today. So this particular technique today, I don't know if there's anyone out there who's named it. Maybe there is. Please do let me know in the comment section if you've come across this before. But I'm going to call it the merging technique, and you will see why in a moment. It's a technique I don't actually recommend most of you go into and do, especially if you're going to do this particular technique a lot and become a healer like me. It's not a technique I would actually recommend you do a lot of. The reason why I'm actually teaching this, though, is because it's still useful to know how to do this technique for helping to heal yourself. And if something does come up in the healing that's really uncomfortable emotionally, mentally, or even physically in your body when you're healing someone, at least you have the tools to know how to clear that in the middle of a healing session without affecting the rest of the healing session. Okay, so why is it called the merging technique? There's different ways of looking at this, but you are basically performing this technique as if your body is their body. So whether you want to believe that your energy body is going into them and you're healing them that way, or their energy body is becoming you and you're healing that way, or you are imagining that your body is their body. Lots of different perspectives and ways of looking at it. Essentially, there is no here or there. If you really go deep into spirituality, there is no distance. So there's no here or there. There is no me and no her. So from that perspective, you know, it can be a bit of an argument knowing or saying for sure whether I'm going into her or she's going into me, or whether we're not going into each other, that I'm just mirroring that body of the person I'm working on, and me changing my vibration means that that vibration goes out from me and changes everyone else who is affected by that particular vibration we're changing. So there's a lot of different arguments of what's happening and what's not. But let's just assume that I'm imagining that my physical body is her physical body, and the aura, of course, because we're working on the energy. So that's what I'm going to assume from now on. So, as if you've seen plenty of my other videos, you may have noticed that I like to verify things. So another reason why it's good to go back to previous lessons if you haven't seen them already, so that you can learn other techniques, other healing techniques, learn other senses, so that you can use those other senses to verify the next type of healing. So, for example, and the person with this technique, by the way, doesn't have to be in the same room. So this technique works perfectly well at a distance too. So again, if you haven't come across the distance healing or the absent healing videos, please go and look at those first as well. So similar to what I showed in those distance healing videos. What we're going to do is use a previously learnt skill. So we're going to use our sense of touch that I've talked about in many other videos, and we're going to find something to work on. So let's maybe work here, which we've done a few times, haven't we, in the past? I haven't worked on my wife for a while, by the way. Maybe that's why something else has come up there. So then maybe that's a good place to work on. So I can feel something with my hand here, a denser energy here compared to somewhere else. So that's a nice thing to work on. And maybe because I have my wife here as well, maybe she can say if there's something going on there. Verify that there is maybe some tension going on here. We went on a very long walk yesterday, by the way, so I'm not surprised if there's some tension in the hip flexor muscles there, and therefore the energy field around it, which is nodding and humming too. Okay. So we got one stage of verification to verify what I'm feeling with my hand here. Okay, and then the next step of this technique is to feel into my body. It's a good idea to use that Vipassana technique that Goenka teaches to scan the body before you start the session. So you're already aware of what's going on in your own body and therefore don't mistake it for the person you are working on. And of course, the more you do that Vipassana technique, the more able you are to sense into more parts of your physical body and your energy field, and become more aware, have more detail of what's going on. So the more you do that, the better it is for you to sense whether you really are picking up on someone or not, especially if they share a problem you have. So for example, if I developed tension in my hip flexors yesterday as well, because we went on the same walk, it's much easier for me to sense whether I'm picking up on her tension there if I'm already aware of how much tension I have there as well. So anyway, I'm tuning into my body, tuning into this particular area of my aura and my physical body too, feeling into it, and just becoming aware of what I feel there. And then I'm intending to feel what I would feel if I had my wife's body. So I'm asking to tune into that now, and I'm feeling into my hip flexor. And sure enough, I'm feeling a little bit more tension there. It feels a little bit more dense in that energy field. And just like I taught in a previous video about being mindful when you are healing, despite that tension, despite that discomfort in my energy field and my physical body there, I'm letting the energy flow through that area. If I just pay attention to that now and not talk quite so much. And I can feel energy flowing through that area better now in my energy field and body. And maybe, as a form of verification, maybe my wife notices that too. Do you feel any energy flow through this area?
Maybe a bit of release.
A little bit, okay. But you're nothing obvious at the moment yet?
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. And that's basically the technique, is just sitting, pretending that you are their body and their energy field, letting the energy flow through that area, and gradually it eases. The more I sit with this, let the energy flow as best I can despite the tension, the more I can feel it clear in me. And if I truly am mirroring my wife at the moment, then she will start to feel changes too. And of course, so that you don't have to sit there and just watch me, sit like this and allow energy through me until something changes, you can also add some other techniques. So are you feeling something change, by the way, as I'm sitting here?
On this side, but now it feels like it's released on this side, but it's popped over to the other side.
Okay, so she's feeling some releases here, just in case you couldn't hear it through the microphone. So she's feeling things releasing here, and now she's feeling something more obvious on that side as well. So she's becoming more aware of her body as well. So there you have it. So some verification that I feel that there's energy moving through me, and it feels like I am mirroring her. And so having my wife in front of me answer, are you feeling some change there too? And she's saying yes. So obviously that's one level of verification that it's working. The other thing you can do to check is obviously go back to your other skills, use your sense of touch and feel into that area. Does it feel different compared to how it felt earlier? And it does. I can still feel some energy that I can shift there, but it definitely feels a bit lighter. So that's your second verification that you can use. So like I was about to say, you can actually mix in other techniques with this technique. So you can just sit there and let the energy flow. That's the best way of practicing to start with. See how things feel changed in your energy field, in your physical body, and then check with your hand. What you can do, for example, is use the Hara line technique, what I called the, what did I call it? The Yun method in another video. So again, if you want to practice using the Yun method with this particular technique, go back and look at the Yun method video I did, which uses the Hara line, the central power current. So I can pretend I am my wife's body again, tuning into this little area, imagining my Hara line, feeling into the effects of the Hara line, comparing how it feels when I tune into my central power current, and compare that feeling to how this hip area feels and the energetic field around it. See if I can hold my attention on how that feels and that feels at the same time. Now I'll just try and do that properly. Okay. So when you compare the central power current, the high vibrational energy that holds, and compare it to something that doesn't feel quite so nice vibration, you will notice the one becomes the other. So the central power current, the Hara line, depending on what you want to call it, is the dominant frequency. It's a nice high vibration. So by holding that feeling and comparing it to another part of your body or aura that doesn't feel so good, that starts to dissolve. It starts to raise its vibration. And if you practice that particular technique enough, it will change in an instant. It can be very, very quick the more you practice it. So again, I feel a little bit, it felt like something popped out actually. It wasn't a big thing, it wasn't very dense, but it did feel like something just went and came out. So again, you can go to your verification and ask, did you feel something change in the hip? Was it noticeable?
Yeah, I can notice from right to left. There's a difference there.
So does it feel even lighter on this right hand side now?
Yeah. Okay. But it's more that it's switched, or I feel it more on the right now.
So you're noticing more of a contrast. Yeah. But you're right, you mean?
Oh, yeah, sorry, my
right. Okay, so in case you didn't hear, she says it feels like there's been more of a release on this right side, so it's more obvious that she's feeling something on her left side now. So that's my first level of verification. The second level again is to use my sense of touch, which we've talked about in other videos. Yeah, that's very different there now. It feels much lighter. It feels much easier for my hand to pass through. So that's my other level of verification that I can use. And we can go into more levels of verification as we go into further lessons, when I start going into using techniques that use our imagination or imaging or eyesight. So there's lots and lots of different senses we can develop in future to use as more verification processes, but these are the main two at the moment. So that's it in a nutshell.
Can you do the left side?
Can I do the left side now? Yes. So I'll probably carry on healing after I finish with this video. Yes, I can do that. So yeah, that's basically it. Make sure you go and watch the previous two videos that I mentioned. So being mindful when you are doing healing and practicing the Vipassana style, the Goenka style of Vipassana, so that you get better at being aware of your body and your energy field, so that it's easier to tell whether something's yours or not. Then setting the intention, so remember how powerful intention is, that I talked about right at the start of this course. So you set an intention that you are going to pretend that you are the person you are working on, And so you feel into your physical body and your energetic field as if you were that person. Allow the energy to pass through that area so it gradually changes. And of course, you can add on other skills such as the Hara line technique, the Yun method, as I call it, if you want to. And that's basically it in a nutshell. I almost forgot to say, I was going to explain why I don't recommend this technique for most people. And the reason is because it's the most tiring technique especially if you haven't really learned how to allow energy to move no matter what's going on within you or around you. So if there's any resistance in you, if you're not very good at letting the energy flow, even if your physical body is in discomfort, or you have lots of emotions coming up, or you have lots of distracting thoughts, or lots of thoughts in general, if you're not practiced at allowing energy to flow, despite those sorts of things happening, or maybe astrally, if you can see things in the astral and there's things that disturb you, that what you're viewing, that might create some resistance in you, and you may slow down the flow of energy. So if you're not practiced at allowing energy to flow in those situations, and there's a bit of resistance, it can be quite tiring. And especially because you are pretending to be someone else's body, you may well pick up on a lot of different things. And it may be uncomfortable for you, and therefore you may create some resistance, knowingly or not, willingly or not. And so it can be quite tiring trying to relax into it and allowing the energy to flow. I would also say that the people who are probably the best at this technique are those who would call themselves empathic. So they are people who say that they tend to feel other people's issues when they're around them. So those are the best people at doing this sort of technique. But at the same time, if they're not very good at allowing energy to flow through them, they can also be the worst people for this technique, because they pick up on so much, and therefore if they're not allowing the energy to flow through them, they can take on that energy. So it's not that something jumps off the person you're working on onto you, or that the person forces anything onto you. It's you choosing to vibrate the same way as the person you are working on, and therefore you take on that vibration, and it appears that something jumped from them to you. It appears you caught that particular problem. But in reality, it's just that you weren't allowing the energy to flow in you, and you subconsciously or unconsciously or not, willingly or not, took on that vibration and took on the same symptoms. So sometimes people who've done this technique, and I've used this technique plenty of times and had to take time out after performing healings with this particular technique in order to clear whatever was in my energy field that I took on, as I would have said in the past. So yes, so it is quite a tiring technique. It can be quite time consuming if you have to do work on yourself after doing a healing section for that reason. So I hope that makes sense. It's still a useful skill to learn though, just in case you do feel something in you when you are doing healing on someone else. And of course, learning how to clear things in your energy field is useful even on your own, even when you're not working on someone. So it's quite a useful thing to practice, and not necessarily do all the time if you are planning to be a full-time healer. Okay, if there's any questions on this, please do email me or let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.